Hello landlords, it's Ernie Garcia, landlord attorney, and today we're talking all about an abstract of judgment. I'll give you the what, when, where, how, and why, and then a little bit more. Let's get started. So what is an abstract of judgment? An abstract of judgment is a document that is produced by a court. It explains who was part of the original lawsuit in a civil claim. It explains the court where the judgment was issued and the amount of the judgment awarded. The abstract also identifies the particular defendant or defendants who now owe this judgment debt. But what is the function of an abstract of judgment? Let me give you an example. Let's say I got a judgment against Michael Jordan. Not that Michael Jordan, a different Michael Jordan. And I don't even mean Michael B. Jordan, another famous person. This is a much less famous person who just happens to have a very famous name. But if I have a judgment against this Michael Jordan, and there are multiple other Michael Jordans out there, how is anybody supposed to know which one I actually sued? That's what the abstract of judgment is for. In the abstract, there are identifiers that are used to narrow down the search because your specific Michael Jordan has a date of birth, a Texas driver's license or ID, and a social security number. And if you have that information, you can narrow down the search to the particular Michael Jordan that you sued. This way, the court can add that information to the abstract, and now you have narrowed down the focus, and now your judgment lien attaches to the one Michael Jordan on the planet that matches these identifying numbers. So when can you get an abstract of judgment? Well, it's available to you once you have a final judgment. So what does that mean? Just because your case has reached judgment doesn't necessarily mean that it is final. If the defendant has an opportunity to file an appeal, then technically the court still has power, and that judgment could be revoked or amended or appealed and no longer exist or no longer exist in its original form. And so it cannot be abstracted. Once the judgment is final and can no longer be appealed, then you can abstract the judgment and establish your judgment lien. Let me give you an example. Let's say you filed a case at the Justice of the Peace, and you've gone before the Justice of the Peace and you've been awarded a judgment in your civil claim. But the defendant in your case files an appeal, and now the case moves to the courts downtown. So in this case, it would be the county courts at law. If that's happened, then you no longer have the eligibility to obtain an abstract of judgment from the Justice of the Peace. You'll have to wait until maybe you have a final judgment at the next level from the county court. However, once that judgment is issued and the ability to appeal has expired without any sort of appeal, now that judgment has become final and you can obtain your abstract. So now where can you get your judgment? As we talked about, sometimes your judgment jumps from one court to another. So it's important that you obtain your judgment from the court that issued the final judgment. Again, once the case is appealed and it's in the hands of another court, you have to obtain that final judgment before you are eligible for an abstract. And so you wouldn't go back to the original court to request the abstract. You would request your abstract from the court that issued the final judgment. So now we get to the how. Well, the how is as simple as submitting a written request to the court that issued the final judgment and paying a fee. Generally, the fee is not very high. Right now, it's probably under about $10, maybe $15 or $20, depending on your county. But the costs are not especially high. But you would pay the fee, make a written request, and then the court would send an original abstract of judgment to you either by the mail, or if they do same-day service, you might be able to collect it same day from that court if that service is available to you. So now the final question is, why would you get an abstract of judgment? It's not just a pretty piece of paper signed by the judge and closely identified to your actual named defendant. The why comes with your reasonable expectation that you can either A, recover some portion of that judgment, if not all of it, or that the judgment itself should bear a lasting effect on the defendant. Landlords, as always, we welcome you to follow us on our Instagram page. If you're not a member yet, join us on Facebook. And if you enjoy what you see here, give us a thumbs up. Click that like button. We enjoy that very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. So let's say you're convinced and you decide, yeah, I'm in. I want this. I want my judgment to have a lasting effect on the defendant. And I believe that I do have a reasonable expectation to collect the judgment that I have now won. So there's the what else. Well, it's nice that you've obtained an abstract, but now you have to record it. And so the what else is, what does that mean? What is recording? Well, to make it very simple for you, once you receive the original copy of the abstract of judgment, you should record that judgment in the county where the defendant currently resides. Now that might be complicated, but if you know that the matter was raised in the county where the tenant formerly resided, it's pretty logical to concede that maybe they're still residing in the same county. And so you have to look out for the county clerk's office, specifically the property records of the county clerk in the county where you wish to file this abstract. Again, the original copy of your abstract of judgment should be filed with the property clerk's records of the county clerk's office in the county where you wish to file. There will be a fee, and usually that recording fee is about $20, maybe a little bit more, for a single page. And if your abstract is multiple pages, you'll likely have to pay additional amounts for additional pages. But you know, again, these fees are about $20 to $25 for recording. So once this document is recorded, you have recorded your judgment lien. So what's the benefit of this? Well, there are a few. Number one, credit reporting agencies now have access to this document, which is published and available to the entire world for investigation. You've established a judgment lien against a very specific defendant, right? Remember, we sued Michael Jordan, but we narrowed it down to the Michael Jordan with this particular driver's license, the last four, this particular social security number, the last four, and this particular date of birth. So anybody who matches those three, and again, these identifiers are probably already known by credit reporting bureaus. Now this can match up and attach itself to a credit report. There are instances where defendants, maybe not immediately, but sometime down the line, will seek to secure some kind of loan, usually, for example, for the purchase of a vehicle or the purchase of a home. It's at these times, perhaps, when the defendant is slightly better off and in a healthier financial position, that they are the most able to pay off judgment liens. And if, for example, a title company does a search for any judgment liens, which is common, against an individual, they may say, whoa, you might have a problem here. You're going to need to clear off this judgment lien before you can proceed to closing with this lender. And so it's at that time that you might get a call, or your attorney might get a call about what to do to clear off an old judgment lien. And so recording your abstract of judgment and limiting it down to your specific defendant assists you in that process. Again, you might have somebody who's being sued with a very common name, and a judgment lien may be found, and they're able to sign an affidavit saying, nope, that's not me, I have no idea what that has to do. But if you have these identifiers, the social security number, the Texas driver's license, and the date of birth, it'll be very difficult for that defendant to sign any affidavit making this claim when this data is known to the title company and to the loan company or the mortgage company or the bank. So in the event that someone is trying to secure a loan, they might be stopped by this judgment lien, and that might be the time when you're able to recover your judgment funds with interest. Finally, sometimes when someone does their own credit check or they're improving their credit for some other objective, they will come across the recorded judgment lien on their credit history. And they may simply reach out to you and say, look, I'd like to clear this off. I'm doing things to repair my credit because I want to X, Y, or Z at some time down the future. Can we discuss resolution of this credit debt? And so you may be in a position where you are called sometime down the line by your defendant and asked what can be done to resolve the debt. Now, naturally, the easy response is, well, pay me what you owe plus the interest that I'm entitled to, and I will gladly release the judgment lien. All that requires is payment and then another filing with the court and with the county clerk's office releasing that lien. So you can file a satisfaction of judgment with the court so that the court's records are clear, and then a release of judgment or release of judgment lien with the same property clerk where you filed the abstract of judgment. So now that lien is released and the defendant can move on knowing that the judgment is paid, and soon the record will clear showing that this judgment debt was in fact paid off. So the abstract of judgment is an excellent tool that you can use to establish a judgment lien and put the world on notice that this particular defendant owes this particular money to you. Again, it could be that sometime down the future, this defendant will seek you out in order to pay off the judgment debt. Or it could be, and this is in an upcoming video that I'll be making, that you take one additional step and you come after this defendant offensively, seeking out what you know to be property that can be seized from them through another process. Again, videos coming out soon. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you again.